folks. Okay, folks, it's a few minutes past the hour, which means that we can begin. Okay, this is the note well. I'm sure you've seen this a few times this week, so it still applies. A few things. If you want to join the queue, whether you're remote or whether you're in the room, you need to use the Meet Echo app, either the full thing, the full video website, or the small one that's useful for phones. So you need to use that to join the mic queue. If you use the full client, keep audio off so that we don't get feedback in the room, and wear masks whenever you're not actively talking or drinking. Remote participants, it's recommended that you use headsets because it sounds a lot better. Okay, this is the general agenda for the IETF meeting, information about Meet Echo and technical assistance. And this is our own agenda. So we'll start with the administrivia. Do we have note takers? Yeah, that doesn't really work very well. Let's see. Let's try me saying my own name. Yoavnir. Yeah. You're really close by. Yeah, Yoavnir, right. So yeah, that's not really a good replacement for a note taker. Do we have volunteers, either local or remote? Okay, thank you. So, where were we? Yeah, so I'll be looking at the Jabber room as well. So, well, it's not the Jabber room, it's the chat. Anyway, I don't think it's going to see a lot of use. So we're going to do the draft updates. And here, update about the marathon and hackathon and all that. And then the remaining works. Now, as you may have heard and seen on the mailing, that this is the last meeting for I2NSF. We're not closing immediately. We're waiting for all the documents that are currently pending to be done. But this is probably the last time we ever meet face to face. Or let's use a synonym for last. This is the ultimate I2NSF meeting, right? Yeah, so we have 3 documents: the capability data model, the NSF facing interface, and the NSF monitoring data model in the RFC editor's queue, all waiting for the other document. And we have a few documents under IESG review. That's the consumer facing interface data model and the registration interface data model. And yeah, the remaining drafts are discussed on the mailing list, and there's data tracker, yes. So let's move to the other document, to the other presentation. Then I have to ship preload. And, oh yeah, let's start with the hackathon report.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Ivan Shen, Chris from Kyungsung University. I represent the SKKU team to share some progress of this time hackathon project. Okay, next. So this time we continue our hackathon project. So this time we reflect the latest update of the revision of the two drafts, mainly in the registration interface and the consumer-facing interface. Next. So this is overall architecture of the current I2NSF drafts and those submitted to the ISG. So as you can see here, we have the security client and security management system and security network. So the major update is in the center middle between security controller and DMS. So this time we added a query, and with the query we have this registration interface. Next. Yeah, in this hackathon we had implemented the latest version of the consumer-facing interface. And we also implemented the latest version of registration interface, Young Data Model. Next. So as you can see here, we kind of a POC, proof of concept for this I2NSF. We built this simplified website. We have this endpoint registration. It has user groups, device groups, location groups, URL groups. On the right-hand side, we have this high-level configuration. In this high-level configuration, we can put different configuration intention with those intention. Next. The security policy will be translated to the low-level policy. As you can see here, we generate a general firewall. And inside it has many policies. Yeah, next. What we got done is that, the older version and new version, you can see here, we have in the upper figure, we switched the netconf server and netconf client, and we added the query. In the newer version is that we switched netconf become the security controller become the client, and the DMS becomes server. So we switched these rows, and we also added the query. So the client sent the query to the server, then the server replied this registration interface. Next. Then eventually we have these register NSFs. We have these several use cases like general firewall, time-based firewall, URL filtering. All this kind of register NSF can be applied to the actual devices, security devices. Okay, next. Then in this hackathon, what we learned is that the latest version of consumer-facing interface enables easy configuration for I2NSF users. And it provides a necessary high-level information for NSF configuration to the I2NSF users. The latest version of the registration interface, Young Data Model, simplifies the architecture of the I2NSF framework. So it allowed both registration and query. Yeah. Next. The next step, the possible step, is that we try to implement security policies life cycle for dynamic policy update. Then in this work, we may try to verify security policy that performs the necessary actions to ensure that requested high-level security policy will be achieved. We may also do some analysis of the network behavior with machine learning techniques or any other tools, and we try to reconfigure the appropriate security policy that can be monitored in real time. And next. So yeah, we have uploaded the source code, those kind of POC in the GitHub. You can check it out. Next. We also have this demonstration video clip. If you are interested, you can click this YouTube link. You'll see how it works, how this POC works. Yeah. Next. We have this team. Yeah, this time we have several professors and members. And yeah, next.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Any question and comment? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So next is the so next is the consumer-facing interface and registration interface update.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick, and I'm here to give you some updates on what we have done on our last two drafts, the consumer-facing interface and registration interface. Next, please. Yeah, first, let me start with the consumer-facing interface young data model. Next, please. Yeah, so one of the things we did is we basically added a new leaf for the how to configure the antivirus. Here we added a profile which follows the system used in our confirm NSF facing interface. So this profile is basically used as a deny list. So we can configure what kind of signature maybe in this antivirus for a deny list, and also for the exception list, we configure what is allowed, basically allowed to go through on this antivirus. Next slide, please. And the next one is we added an explanation on how to handle negative values on the offset and distance. And basically, we give a guidance. If the negative value is given, that means the bit or the those content basically is start looking from the back instead of the front. That's basically how to handle this negative values. Next slide, please. And also we have a new comment from the transport area regarding how we explain about the reject. So this reject is previously we kind of say an example of how to reply a rejected packet with ICMP code type 3 code 3 and ICMP6 type 1 code 4, which he said is not really the best case to use. Instead, we should use the router reject instead of a host reject. So in here, we updated the text that basically a packet should be rejected with ICMP4 type 3 code 13 and or a type 1 code 1 for the ICMP physics. This is the destination unreachable for communicative administratively prohibited, which means an example is like firewall filter, then we can use this code. Next slide, please. Yeah, and next part is for the registration interface. Yeah, as previously Chris already mentioned, basically we, in the older version, we kind of have a complicated architecture where we kind of use netconf server on both sides. And in this new version, basically we just simplify this architecture where the server is just on the DMS side and the client is on the security controller side. So this kind of enables both registration and query into using the same young data models. Next slide, please. Yeah, in this latest update, basically, in the previous version, we are using an augmented version of the capability data model. Now, instead, we're just using a kind of a RPC method to be able to query. And in this case, we are still using the I2NSF capability young data model. But also, we have an input of that young data model, and then we have the output of what kind of NSF it is, for how to get the information. Next slide, please. And yeah, this is the latest version, basically, where you can see that in the input and the output we are giving the I2NSF capability young data model. And in this version, the new young data model is combines basically the query capability registration and capability query with just this one young data model instead of having those two young data models. So in here you can see we are using this RPC statement basically in the young data model. So, and also the output can be possible. It has multiple NSFs. So if the query requires a multiple NSF, and this young data model allows that multiple NSFs. Next slide, please. And also we kind of added a new system to update the NSF. Basically, the input the requested input is just the name of the NSF, which NSF needs to be updated, and also what is the current version of that NSF. And the DMS can reply with that NSF with their new capabilities if there are any updates, right? And also what kind of specification and maybe if there are changes for the new access information. And if no such updates, then we can just give an RPC error message with a little bit of detail of that message of why there's no update. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, basically, both of these drafts are currently under IESG evaluations. After these evaluations, this draft can be concluded, and these two are our last I2NSF drafts. And I believe after all of these are done, we can finally publish all I2NSF young data models drafts, right? From the capability, NSF facing interface, monitoring interface, consumer facing, and registration interface. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hey, oh, good. So,
Hi, this is Roman. I apologize, I didn't jump in the queue. Yeah, in addition to releasing all the Yang models, we also can release the applicability statement document.
Yes, that's right.
so can you give an estimate, like how much more time, like the rest of the process?
Absolutely, kind of fair question. So kind of stepping back, we had the document in the working group. The working group did last call, publication request was submitted. I did my AD review, all the revisions happened. Then we went to IETF last call. That has been also completed. So where we are in the process is we are in ISG evaluation. So that means kind of specifically it needs to be brought to ISG review. And the way that process works is every 2 weeks, there's something which is called the ISG telechat. So those documents are reviewed every 2 weeks. Because of the scheduling of this meeting, the next ISG review is the second week in April. And I'm looking, I want to say it's like April 11th or April 13th, which is a Thursday. So both of those documents are going to be on the ballot there. So the ISG has to review them by that date. And so if they have kind of concerns, they will provide them at that time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you very much.
So next is security policy translation.
Yes, here I'm just going to talk about another draft for the security policy translation. This is a guideline on how to make a translation in our I2NSF framework. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just a bit to remind you what this draft is basically. This draft is show you how the translation between the high-level security policy and the corresponding low-level security policy. So this is, we wanted to elevate I2NSF in a real-world deployment. And in the I2NSF framework, we included a lot of both target object like firewalls, web filter, and any other kind of NSF out there. And this document is we will try to give some guideline on what the relationship between the higher level policy, which is the consumer facing interface, and also the lower level policy, which is the NSF facing interface young data models. Next slide, please. Yeah, so because we, as you know, I just talked about the updates on the consumer-facing interface. Now we just added a new guideline for this antivirus, where we added how to do the mapping for the antivirus profile. Next slide, please. And also in the consumer-facing, also we kind of updated how the handle of geographic location, where we are using a country, region, and city instead of just one name. Now, also because of that addition, we updated the guideline on how that referencing and mapping system. Next slide, please. Similarly, on the voice case for voice over IP or maybe voice over cellular network, in this case we have added a new group, which is to kind of register the SIP ID. And because of that, we also did add this new guideline on we can reference those name and then get those SIP ID, and then we can map it into the lower level. Next slide, please. Yeah, and also there are a couple of missing mapping guidelines basically on this, how to map if a certain language is used, or how if a certain resolution strategy, and in the event it was missed, the application, the time of how to map the time, the device, and the user's mapping. Next slide, please. Yeah, so to conclude, this document is basically we want to help developer if they want to know how to translate this high level into the low level. That's the target of this document. And also we kind of suggest on an approach, basically on what the architecture should be and the procedure, so that people can develop their own security policy translator. And this draft, we want to propose it as an informational draft, which is, we think it's helpful for the developer. So I just want to ask, like, how to proceed this, because I2NSF is closing. So do you think it's independent, or maybe we try to another working group? Yeah, thank you.
So I have a question. For the location, on the Lisp working group, they have defined the TLV to represent the geolocation. I wonder if you can reference that one instead of define a new one. They have a it's called geolocation. Lisp, you go to Lisp working group, they have a geolocation draft. It's a working group draft now, so maybe you can reference that instead of defining a new one.
Okay, I can take a look at it. Thank you.
Okay. About the process of where a draft like this can go, well, the obvious place to ask is in Sec Dispatch, but they're not meeting for another 4 months. So it could be an independent submission. I mean, drafts do get approved like that. And then I don't know if it's correct to put it in a working group that is not part of the security area. But I guess that's part of the things that you'd have to ask in Sec Dispatch. And you can just ask in the mailing list for Sec Dispatch. I mean, we don't have to dispatch things only during that single session. So that's the good place to ask it, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So next up is the analytics interface, young data model.
Yeah, this is the analytics interface. So next slide, please. Yeah, so the analytics interface is basically, in this draft, we kind of define a new interface to handle a real-time situation where, for example, if there's a server network that's not stable, there's an attack, then we can use a closed-loop security control where we kind of try to enhance the network security using a thorough analysis of monitoring data. And with this addition, we want to allow a security management automation, basically, where we can support automatic adaptation for the real-time network condition. Next slide, please. So there are two roles basically on this interface. We want to give a policy reconfiguration and feedback information. And on both of them, we have the name of the NSF and what's the problem and the solution. And then the NSF is for the identification of what NSF it is. The problem is kind of what issue is currently going on in the network, so that the NSF need to handle. The solution is just what should be done in the network right now. Next slide, please. Yeah, so first, in the policy reconfiguration, it is utilizing the NSF facing interface, basically, where there's a closed loop happen when the NSF detects some problem that may need to be handled. And then the analyzer analyzes that, yeah, it is need to be handled, and they kind of thinks of a new way of how to configure. Maybe it can be handled with a reconfiguration of the NSF. And this hopefully created a strength for the network itself. Next slide, please. And in the other one is the feedback information. This is basically to tackle another problem that may not be able to be handled by the other case. In this case, maybe we need to kind of report to the users on a certain problem, maybe like the system resource, or maybe there's a malfunction on that NSF where a human is needed. So in this case, the analyzer decides that a notification must be given to the users. So this action can be given to the user, or even maybe you can query to the developer management system of another NSF. Next slide, please. Yeah, it's similar like the last time. Basically, this draft, maybe we want to submit as an independent submission or maybe another working group. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it the last one?
I think we have one more. Yeah, one more.
That's the controller facing interface. Controller facing interface. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Jung-hyun Kim from Sungkyungan University in Korea. Today, I'm going to present about the new revision of I2NSF security controller pacing interface Yang data model for cross-domain security parameter exchange. This presentation is based on the draft Kim I2NSF security controller pacing interface data model version 1. This update addresses the comment provided by Rafa Marin Lopez. Next, please. The main updates are as follows: an update to security controller pacing interfacing information model. Second, an update to the security controller pacing interface peer-to-peer use case and hierarchical use case. Next, please. Okay. First, in this revision, the security policy information of the previous data model is changed to the low-level security policy. This reduced the time required for policy translation. Next, please. In this page, we add a negotiation process to check the security controller in cross-domain can address the security policy capabilities before delivery, rather than delivering security policy directly to the security controller located in different domain in the peer-to-peer scenario. In this way, if the security service requested by the user cannot be handled, unnecessary process can be omitted. Thus, it can reduce the processing time. Next, please. In the hierarchical scenario, a capability negotiation process has been added where the primary security controller checks if there is a secondary controller capable of handling the required security policy. Next, please. In summary, this draft is introduced for cross-domain IPsec flow protection, suggesting an I2NSF expansion architecture and use cases such as peer-to-peer and hierarchical architectures. The next step, we plan to create Yang data model for security control pace SFI before IETF116 San Francisco. Finally, we would like to hear anyone's opinion on how to proceed with this standardization process, such as through independent submission or working group, for example, OFSA working group. Okay, thank you for listening my presentation.
Well, thank you for making it. And I think we'll tell you the same thing that we said before. Go to the SecDispatch list, and from there you'll at least get advice. I mean, it really looks to me like a security thing, so I'm kind of not really okay with that going to ops area working group, but whatever the SecDispatch people think, which is the same people as all of us anyway. So yeah, that's the place to ask, though. Now, if these documents get adopted either in as independent submissions, we can still use the I2NSF list to discuss them. Lists don't close when the working groups close. I mean, the PKIX list is still used to discuss PKI stuff, and it's been like 15 years since it was since the working group was closed. So yeah, the mailing list remains and is a good venue for the discussion. However, the drafts are handled.
Thank you.
So that conclude, right?
And with that, I think we're out of agenda items. So unless there's something, any other business, yes, Roman.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to come up to the mic to say congratulations to the working group. It has been a long road of a lot of very, very kind of hard work and a lot of work at the hackathon, which has been exemplary in refining these Yang models. And I don't want to presuppose how the ISG review goes, but we are very, very close. So congratulations and kind of kudos for all the hard work the working group has put into producing these data models.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it.
Okay, so thank you all, and see you around in other working groups.
Thank you, Roman, for all those years. Help.
Thank you, Linda and Joe, for stewarding us for as long as you did. Across the finish line.
Cross the finish line. And this week is going to be over soon. That's nice. Tomorrow, last day.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. I'm down by 1 o'clock. Oh, you're part of Dell now. Oh, okay. Thank you.
There's always a problematic portion. The big vendors don't want it to exist. The system and checkpoint. They're all competing on. It's easy to drop packs. They're competing on is the price or the control. So they want special thing to be the control. Standardizing the control means that they're only competing